Sweating to the truth, nothing but the truth. Put my hands on the Bible, y'all point me to the booth. Yo, new season, new colors, new merch, new swag. Go over to Imago Day Apparel Shop and get in your bag with our latest gear. I promise you won't be disappointed. Rep the kingdom, I rock in his image. Every order and purchase goes into helping me bring you better content. And so every order and purchase is greatly appreciated. We thank you for the support, and as always, peace and love. And June 1st through 16th, Father's Day sale is going on right now, bro. The Father's Day code is Father's Day 2024. 15% off for the special men in your life, bro. Get over there right now. What are you doing? But what's going on, bro? So we got a good one for you all today, man. So Congressman Byron Donalds is catching a lot of flack for making this statement right here.
During Jim Crow, the Black family was together.
And you know the people like the Hakeem Jeffries, the Abby Phillips, and the Joy Reids, and the Roland Martins, and the Al Sharptons are taking this thing and running with it.
Black people weren't allowed to vote at all during Jim Crow.
Well, first of all, there were areas in the United States where Black people did vote.
Under Jim
Crow? It wasn't universal throughout the United States. So let's just be perfectly honest about that. I just told you it was not universal.
We know Jim Crow
there
wasn't
were areas, but obviously Black people were suppressed from voting. That's what the purpose of not just the 64 and the 65 voting rights back, but so many others. But let's get back to what I was saying.
So you're inaccurate
All
there.
I was talking about is about Black families. No, I'm not being inaccurate.
During Jim Crow, more Black people voted conservative. They didn't vote conservative because they weren't allowed to vote. That is the essence of what Jim Crow is.
So again, Joy, I'm going to come back to my original point. It is talking about the family unit, having more fathers in the home, which creates better people going forward.
Last question, and then I'm going to let you go. Last question. We're out of time, but I'm going to give you one more question. During Jim Crow, could your family have existed? You are in an interracial marriage. Your wife is a white conservative activist. Could your family have existed at all during Jim Crow?
No, it could not, Joy, and we all know that. But that's why I am blessed to live in America today as opposed to America during that time. But we cannot ignore the realities of not having fathers in homes. That is important for Black people today and all people today as we move forward for a better America.
We are out of time. What I'm grateful for is that we do not live in the Jim Crow era and that fathers do not face the threat of lynching.
I'm very grateful of that.
Perhaps don't bring up Jim Crow when you're trying to make that example.
We are going to talk about the era, Congressman, and you name a race-based law. Then you cannot take race out of the fact Jim Crow was a law against Black people. You weren't just talking about the era of Dwight Eisenhower and Harry Truman. You named Jim Crow. There's only one way you could deal with Jim Crow, and that's by race. I mean, look, you and I have mutual friends. People say you're a straight shooter. We may disagree on politics. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. But look, you were born in Brooklyn. You went down into the South, went to Florida State. You have an interracial marriage. You're the congressman of a district that's not a Black district. I mean, how can you even live with yourself acting like Jim Crow was a good era or better era for Blacks? What happened to you?
Okay, that's real cute. That's real cute. I did not say that. And I'm not going to sit here and have to insinuate that against me. Because right now you're lying about what I said. I did say Jim Crow. I did reference it 3 times. That's not to say that it was better. I never said that. Those words never came out of my mouth. When are you going to get that through your skull and everybody else's skull? I never said that. And the difference between me and a lot of other Republicans, I'm not going to sit here.
You said it was better for us.
I'm not going to let you
under Jim Crow to bring families together. Did you say that?
Hakeem Jeffries was lying. The Biden campaign was lying. Go look at my words.
Jim Crow, as you know, was a period of racial segregation, of racial terror. Why would you make that connection?
All I was doing was referring to the time periods when you talk about the historical timelines in America and coinciding with Black families and what the marriage rate in Black families are. The overarching point is obviously talking about what polling shows today, that about 25% of the Black vote, depending on what poll you're looking at, is leaning towards supporting Republicans and supporting President Trump. The corollary to that is that when you're in a family unit, husband and wife, living together, working together, thriving together, you're raising your kids, your thought process is now talking about building generational wealth.
It's come to my attention that a so-called leader has made the factually inaccurate statement that Black folks were better off during Jim Crow. That's an outlandish, outrageous, and out-of-pocket observation. We were not better off when a young boy named Emmett Till could be brutally murdered without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off when black women could be sexually assaulted without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off when people could be systematically lynched without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off when children could be denied a high-quality education without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off when people could be denied the right to vote without consequence because of Jim Crow. How dare you make such an ignorant observation?
But that's not what he said, that black families had it better under Jim Crow. He said black families were together under Jim Crow. But that's always like the Democrats, these pundits, twist something to manipulate it so that they can push their narrative with it. I mean, of course, this is social media where content is king and not context. And then also, bro, we are in election year. So of course, they are going to try to paint this picture to make Republicans and conservatives look as bad as they can make them look. But let's add some actual context to what Byron Donalds was actually saying. So Byron Donalds and Wesley Hunt went to a speaking event in Philadelphia where they were seeking to reach black voters by talking honestly and truthfully about the challenges that the black community is facing. And if you notice, I said honestly and truthfully. And if we're being that, then we have to say that number one thing is fatherlessness. His reach at this event was to emphasize how two-parent households weren't such an anomaly at one point of time. Shoot, that was at one point of time that black households were more prone to having a father and a mother than the white households. So he was not wrong in saying what he said. And he also mentioned what did away with it, but how we're starting to see that slowly come back.
During Jim Crow, the black family was together.
That's right.
During Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative, because black people always have been conservative minded, but more black people voted conservatively. And then H.E.W., Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are. What's happened in America the last 10 years, and I say it because it's my contemporaries, it's Wesley's contemporaries, you're starting to see more black people be married in homes, raising kids. It's when you home with your wife raising your kids, and then you look at the world, you're saying, now wait a minute, time out. This does not look right. How can I get something to my kids? It goes back to the conversation of generational wealth. Not just having a job, generational wealth. I'm looking at my kids. How can my kids be on my shoulders when they take off in life? That's what's happening.
So yeah, it's pretty convenient for the race hustlers to say what they're saying, to twist it and manipulate it. But they so briefly forgot to mention how it's the people that they support and the policies that they push that actually advocate for the dismantling of the black family. And if you don't believe me, you don't take my word for it. Let's listen to Thomas Sowell, world-renowned intellectual scholar, dedicated his life to studying and researching this stuff, have written tons and tons of books about it.
The family, again, discrimination and disparities. As of 1960, this one, I just find this one heartbreaking. As of 1960, 2/3 of all black American children were living with both parents. That declined over the years until only 1/3 were living with both parents in 1995. Among black families in poverty, 85% of the children had no father present, close quote. So it's not the legacy of slavery that destroys the African-American family.
It's the legacy of the welfare state.
And by the way, we see illegitimacy rates rising among everybody.
Yeah, and in other countries.
And
the very same thing in England.
And what's the mechanism? Why does the welfare state dissolve the family structure?
For one thing, it makes it unnecessary for fathers to support their offspring. And in fact, it makes it counterproductive in many cases. A very poor man who might be able to support his family realizes his family will be better off without him. But on the other hand, someone who's strictly irresponsible, either the man or the woman or both, now pays no price for being irresponsible. The taxpayers pay the price. And actually, the harm done to the taxpayers, which is serious, still is not comparable to the harm done to the families, especially the children.
To the kids.
Yeah. Moynihan was excoriated for pointing this out.
1965,
the Moynihan
report. That's right,
yes.
the Moynihan report.
What is people that took this as a way of putting down blacks? What they don't understand was that one, Moynihan was a scholar who knew that his own group, the Irish Americans, had that very same problem at the beginning of the 20th century, and more importantly, Moynihan's own father deserted the family when he was 10 years old.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He and his brother were out shining shoes in Times Square and Central Park to try to bring in a few pennies to help keep the house going. And so where they'd been living in this wonderful suburban area, suddenly they were in a very rough neighborhood, and they were shining shoes in Times Square to try to make ends meet. And so he understood that this was one heck of a problem that people should be warned about, and he was simply excoriated.
And I find it quite ironic that when we look up the percentages for fatherlessness in the households, what you'll find is it's 77% for the black households, 56% for Hispanic households, 30% for white households, and 27% for Asian households. But what you will find even more is that the average household income, meaning who's bringing in more income out of these households, that list, it now inverts. So Asian households, the ones that were at 27% in terms of fatherlessness, is bringing in more income. Then you have the white households who's the second to bringing in the most income. Then the Hispanic households who's third, and the black households who was last. And the most recent data that we can find on that was 2015. But it's been that way for decades, and some people believe that it's almost inevitable. Y'all remember the saying, women lie, men lie, numbers don't lie? So let's keep it a buck, bro. These people are liars and will do whatever to keep us on the plantation. We've been voting Democrat for over 50 years. And where has that gotten us? What do we have to show for it other than rundown communities, mass incarcerations, mass homicides, single parent households, ratchet culture, and impoverishment? I'll wait. These Negroes, they're getting pretty uppity these days, and that's a problem for us since they've got something now they never had before, the political pull to back up their uppityness. Now we've got to do something about this. We've got to give them a little something, just enough to quiet them down, not enough to make a difference. I'll have them niggers voting Democrat for the next 200 years. We do not owe it to this man's legacy to keep people who support him or who push his policies, the welfare state, the war on poverty, to keep them in office. Just because they seem generous does not mean that they have the best intentions for us. The road to hell is oftentimes paved with good intentions. I heard a wise man once say, Republicans are not 100% the solution, but Democrats are 100% the problem. I felt that. But yo, let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Peace, love. I'm out.
100, 100, 100, that's all I know. Ain't taking a dime off. We working, and that for sure. Ain't taking no time off. We serving, deliver hope. Forget all that crime talk. 100, 100, 100, that's all I go. Yeah, that be what I'm